All right, welcome everyone. I'm just going to give it a couple more minutes to let people file in. People are filing in consistently. So happy to see so many people on. This is exciting. Very, very excited. I have a PowerPoint presentation. Fingers crossed. There are no technology issues. Get comfortable. We're going to do an exercise today, a process for embracing success. That's going to come at the very end. It is something that I do with all my clients, one-on-one. And today we're going to do it together on Zoom. So make sure that you have a place where you can, where you're not driving, where you're not walking your dog or whatever you're doing, so you can actually participate in this exercise. All right, we have a pretty good number of people. Let's let a couple more minutes pass. And while we wait for more people to come online, I wanted to say thank you for taking the time to spend with me. I hope that what you hear today is going to be very valuable. A lot of people right now are being besieged by the news, by the media, by fears, by, that phrase, out of an abundance of caution. This abundance of caution has caused our brain to really hone in and focus on everything that's bad or that could be bad. And maybe some of you are gifted with the ability of not focusing on the negative or not focusing on the worst case scenario, but lots of people are not gifted with that. And so they have to work at it really hard. I know that I, at one point in my life, was very, very anxious, really just focused on what everybody was doing, hyper analyzing how they responded to me or how they didn't respond, how close they stood, all kinds of analysis would go on in my head. And I would create an emotional situation inside myself that when I actually went and talked to someone, they said, "Oh no, I wasn't thinking that at all. I was totally fine. I don't even know what you're talking about." But because I was so focused on and paying so much attention to all the little things that in my mind were examples of, why they didn't like me or why they didn't approve of me or why they weren't supportive of me, I created that scenario in my own mind, even though in actuality that person had no intention of doing that. That person was just focused on something else. And so part of what we're going to talk about today is our ability to focus, our ability to create situations in our lives by honing in on what's important to us and making sure that whatever we hone in on is a conscious choice and not an accident. And so much of what we do in our daily lives is an accident and is not on purpose. I'm going to use the word habit a lot. And it really is my belief that success is a habit. And it's a habit that most of us don't even realize that we possess or that we don't possess. So we're going to talk about how to install success as a habit in our lives, among other things. Okay. So we're going to go ahead and begin in 2 more minutes, really begin, pull up the PowerPoint. But first I wanted to take do a quick orientation of the Zoom platform. I know that a lot of us are on Zoom all day. So again, thank you for joining me this evening. Remember that you've got a raise hand. You've got a raise hand button near you in the panel there. Can each of you find your raise hand button and go ahead and raise your hand just so that we can, there we go. Thank you. the folks on the phone, you know, I need to find out how to do a raise hand on the phone. I think there is a special way to do it. You press like *6 or something like that, and there you have it. But for now, we're in good shape. Awesome. I'm going to lower everyone's hands. So that's great. Raise your hand if you cannot hear me. So I think everyone can hear me. That's good, because I see no hands raised. All right. So we're going to begin. Again, my name is Monica, and I'm going to share my screen. I'm the owner, founder and owner of Nova Hypnosis. And I am very excited to share with you one element of what I believe is the path to embracing a success mindset. It is something that I know from personal experience when I've done the process that I'm about to share with you this evening. I've been able to achieve things that I never thought I could achieve. A very simple example, just to give you a reference. I've been on a couple of deployments and in the military a long time ago, about 10 years ago. And 10 years ago on deployment, as a pilot, I was flying an airplane called the Harrier. And the Harrier is a little jet. It is pretty cool in the sense that it can fly like a jet, meaning fast and straight, but it can also deploy these nozzles, which is almost like 4 tailpipes. Instead of having 1 tailpipe in the back, this little jet has 4 tailpipes, and they can be moved like this, you know, and when they're pointing down, the aircraft can hover. When they're pointed back, the airplane goes fast and straight like a regular jet. And when they're anywhere in between, it can fly in this, you know, slow flight regime that is pretty dynamic. And sometimes the mechanical linkages that control the nozzles fail or are damaged. Sometimes the aircraft has an engine problem, which requires the jet to, let's see here, requires the jet to be adjusted. Let's see, someone is raising their hand. Yes, hold on. Go ahead, Alan. Did you want to say something? No, maybe. Let's see. Alan, did you want to say something? No. Okay. I saw a hand go up. I wanted to be respectful. And so I answered. Okay, but back to my story. So I was on deployment. I was flying in this little jet called the Harrier, and something went wrong. What went wrong was not me. It was the weather. When we flew out, it was clear. When we came back, it was terrible. You couldn't see the horizon. You couldn't see, really, it was so much rain that it was actually hard to see in front of the aircraft. We were coming in for what is called an instrument approach. But an instrument approach is a little bit difficult because you don't have a lot of reference. You can't see, you don't have as much perspective, so you can't see closure as well as when you're doing a visual approach. So you're completely relying on your instruments. You're completely relying on the person in the tower, which is literally a tower that sits on top of this big Navy ship, and they're telling you, you know, you're going fast, you're going slow, you know, speed it up, slow it down, climb, you're too high, come left, come right, that sort of thing. And on this particular day, it had been a long sortie, a long flight. And so I was very, very tired. And not only was it difficult to see and there was no reference, but the tower was swaying because the seas had become rough. And so now the tower is swaying. We're coming in on this instrument approach. It's hard to see around us. And I just remember my heart was beating in my chest like crazy. It was beating very intensely. And I was, um, I had to work very hard to keep my mind focused on what I wanted. And it wasn't even very clear what it is I wanted because we had not briefed this type of recovery. We had briefed, so before every flight, pilots do what's called a brief, where we sit down, we look at a map, we plan out our route, we discuss how fast we're going to fly, how long we're going to be gone, who's going to do what, um, how much fuel we're going to bring back to the ship, how much fuel we're going to use for each part of the mission, this, that, and the other. We had briefed a regular visual recovery. And part of the reason that we do these briefs is to mentally prepare ourselves for what we're supposed to see, for what we're supposed to do. And of course, we also brief emergency procedures, and certainly bad weather or an instrument approach is part of the standard kind of emergency procedure toolkit or tool that we have in our toolkit. But it had been a long time since we had done something like this. So it wasn't what I was used to seeing. It wasn't what I was used to scanning in my sight. And so for a moment, which felt like an eternity, but it was probably 2 seconds, my eyes didn't know on what to focus. It didn't know if I should be focusing on the instrument. I wasn't really sure if I should be putting my gear down. I wasn't sure if I should be going slower or faster, where the nozzles were supposed to be. I was disoriented because I hadn't mentally prepared for doing that kind of approach. So thank God there's that individual in the tower. We call that person the landing signals officer, the LSO. And that gentleman, it was an older gentleman, a senior officer, more senior officer. And he told us, okay, do this, Moose, my call sign was Moose, do this. Okay, you're like this. Okay, do you see the ball? And I said, yes, ball. I called the ball. So when I called the ball, it recaged my whole brain because it was something I was used to seeing. The ball on a Navy vessel is for airplanes to reference how high or low they are relative to where they're going to land. And so when you see the ball in a specific spot, it's just a light. We call it the ball, but it's a light. And the light can be higher or the light can be lower in reference to these two other lights, two series of lights. So if the ball is right in the center between these two series of lights, you know that you're right on glide slope. You're right on where you're supposed to be. And amazingly, I was right on glide slope. I just hadn't realized it because my eye wasn't looking for the ball where it normally is. It was usually right over here in my scan. But now, because I was coming in on an instrument approach, it was here in front of me. So with the help of the LSO, myself and the other pilot, we landed safely, no issues in the rain and the bad weather, the pitching deck. We were safe, obviously, but I had to really focus on what I wanted to happen, because what I wanted to happen was not what I had actually prepared for. I had to make a mental shift at the last minute because of the change in circumstances. But because I had had enough practice and enough repetition earlier, I was able to pull all of that in at the last minute. But normally we prepare for these things and mentally rehearse before we come into land. So what I'm going to share with you today is a way for you to bring into focus what you need and what you want for success, because success is unique and specific to every single person. It's not, my definition of success is not going to be yours. Your definition of success may be different today than it was 5 years ago, and it may be different 10 years from now. But at every stage in life, we have a duty, I believe, to stay focused on success and in whatever capacity and whatever flavor is appropriate for us at that time. So this process I'm going to show you is something you should do or consider doing as often as you can. So back to my screen share here of my PowerPoint. Here we go. How to embrace a success mindset. Here's the overview of what we're going to be covering. So what does it really mean to have a success mindset? What role do habits play in success in our lives? what are habits exactly? I think it's good to define them, because most people think of habits as only specific actions or activities. They're not thinking of of habits as, some intangible things that I'll introduce later. How do you change habits or use habits to help you achieve success? And then what is the process? The process we're going to do. And then what next steps can you take to ensure that you have success? So this is, kind of a simplistic explanation of what it means to have a success mindset. I know there are many more, bigger words and more complex ways to define it, but a success mindset, I call it the little voice inside your head. It's the voice inside your head that's asking you all those really good questions that hone your focus on doing the right thing, saying the right thing, getting sleep, or whatever it is that you need to do to achieve success, to define it, for yourself. Or the little voice inside your head may be sabotaging you, maybe asking you questions that are undermining your confidence or undermining your belief in yourself and in your ability to generate the progress that you want to experience. And these questions that you ask yourself, some of them could be conscious. You may be consciously aware of them, and some of them could be completely unconscious. And you can make yourself aware of these unconscious questions by just, for a day or two, deciding that you're going to be, deciding you want to be aware of, what am I asking myself? What am I saying to myself that is giving, every day? Or, just by setting that intention, you can begin to be conscious of these questions or these sayings, these words, these phrases that the little voice is saying, and then write them down. So take a journal, and every time you realize what you're asking yourself, write it down. A success mindset is also your focus. So I do say this to all my clients, that whatever we focus on, we experience. And you can think of focus like looking through a camera that has a viewfinder. And as you look through that viewfinder, you could really, the rest of the world is blocked out. It's not like cameras today where you kind of look at it from over here and you just press the button. You can still see everything, but now you also see the little image in the back of your camera or your phone, of course. But back in the day, you look through the viewfinder and you could only see, this much, right? This little square right here. And depending on where you place that viewfinder, you could see the most magnificent scene regardless of what was around you. Or you could see something terrible if you just shifted your viewfinder just ever so slightly. I took photography in high school as my shop, like wood shop or, metalworking or jewelry making or whatever. And I took photography and I loved it because I began to find beauty everywhere I looked with my camera. I had a camera that my dad gave me. His first big purchase after coming to America was this particular camera with this Canon and this Canon lens. And he loaned it to me. It kind of broke his heart to loan it to me because he thought I was going to break it or drop it or something, but he did. He trusted me. And I took it all over Manhattan because I lived in New York City at the time. And I took, pictures of fire escapes, and I took pictures of, graffiti, and I took pictures of shadows on the sidewalk and things like that. And it turned, I produced these amazing photographs from, in areas that were quite run down, and photographs of things that were actually quite ugly if you looked at them in their entirety. But because I focused only on this little tiny part of the fire escape, I was able to see beauty where, I think most people, and even myself without the camera, would not have seen beauty. So your focus is the same way. It's the viewfinder of your life. And most of us right now are heavily focused on the potential, illness that we might experience, or the illness of our loved ones. We're focused on the economy and where it might be going. There's a lot of uncertainty in the air. We don't really know, will these stimulus packages actually help matters. How long will it take before we actually have a recovery? If we begin a recovery, a phased approach recovery, will the virus resurface, so on. And so there's a lot of uncertainty. So now more than ever, it's important to take your viewfinder, your focus, and aim it at what gives you joy, what gives you inspiration, what gives you a sense of confidence that you can be successful moving forward. You can make progress. You can find another way. Because I know for myself, like every other small business owner, things have slowed down significantly. So I've had to stay in a positive mindset as much as possible, to be in the headspace to innovate, to be in the headspace to do something different that will actually produce value for people and produce results. And your focus is the same way for you. And what we're really doing is we're programming our reticular activating system. That's that last bullet point there. The reticular activating system is a part of the brain that's responsible for alertness and awakeness. It's the part of the brain that decides what's important to focus on, what's important to pay attention to. So when I was pregnant, I saw pregnant women everywhere. They were everywhere. I couldn't turn my head without seeing a pregnant woman. And I noticed them even if they weren't all that pregnant, right? Because I knew what I was looking for. When I bought my first car, I saw that same car everywhere I drove after that point. And I'm like, oh my God, everyone has a Chevy Blazer. How is this possible? I had no idea that everybody loved Chevy Blazers as much as I do. And that's not true. It's just that that's what my mind was focused on. I went to Europe for a few months, and everybody in Europe drives these much, much smaller cars, right? Like we drive SUVs for that hatchback capability, but the Europeans drive hatchbacks, actual small hatchbacks. And then I came to the US, I'm like, man, there are a lot of hatchbacks in the US. I didn't realize there were so many small hatchbacks in the US, but that was what I was used to seeing. So for the time I was in Europe, so my brain was being programmed to focus on that. Likewise, a success mindset means that little voice inside your head is saying things, asking you questions, consciously or unconsciously, that is shifting your focus over and over and over again throughout the day, throughout the week, throughout the months and years, and has programmed your reticular activating system to seek out reasons, opportunities. You know, if you have a success mindset, a person could absolutely say something offensive to you, but you would find something good in that to take and to learn and to transform it into something that will continue to move you forward. And a mindset of failure would have the opposite, would do the opposite. Someone says something absolutely offensive, objectively offensive, and your mind will say, oh, see, that's right. That's all I deserve. I'll never be treated right. I'll never be treated fairly. And the brain, the mind, the voice is now seeking and focusing on what's wrong. And that reticular activating system is being honed in the opposite direction of success in that second example. So the role that habits play in success, what habits are basically is unconscious patterns. So unconscious patterns rule our daily lives. So we're creatures of habit. And what that means is we're creatures of unconscious habits. So we wake up in the morning, we kind of usually get up the same way. We roll over the same way. We put our feet on the floor the same way. We take a shower. We wash ourselves the same way. We brush our teeth the same way. We usually press the buttons on the coffee machine the same way, and so on and so forth. Over 50% of our daily lives are lived unconsciously. And that's not most of the time. People think of habits like smoking and overeating and nail biting and all these things, but even our decisions are habitual. They're intuitive, they're instinctive. Daniel Kahneman, he wrote a book. I think he wrote Thinking Fast and Thinking Slow, if I'm remembering correctly. And he showed through his work that we actually make our decisions unconsciously or intuitively using that rapid decision-making part of the brain, which is the survival brain, which is the limbic brain, which is the old brain, which is the emotional brain, right? So I'm saying all these things to create the connection that research has shown we make decisions emotionally, and then we use our cognitive brain to actually justify why we made that decision. Oh, well, see, I didn't buy that house because that house was, you know, the lot was too small. No, you didn't buy the house because it reminded you of your grandmother's house with the way the furniture was decorated. And it gave you the heebie-jeebies and you didn't want to even set foot in there. And yes, I'm in the process of buying a house, so that's what's on my mind. But we like to think that we're rational. We like to think that we're more conscious and mindful than we are, and we're not. And the same thing goes for patterns of success and patterns of failure. They're most of the time unconscious. And what's interesting is that habits, whether they're the habits that lead us towards success or the habits that lead us towards failure, can be any number of things. They can be activities, right? Like if we keep eating the cookie after dinner, that activity is not going to lead to physical, success. If we keep thinking the worst of what our spouse or our parents or our children are thinking or, feeling about us, we are not going to have a successful relationship. But even feelings can be habits in the sense that we each have kind of like a home base for feelings that we like to experience on a regular basis. And people will find ways to feel those feelings over and over and over again. So I know a woman who loves to feel sorry for herself. So feeling sad and feeling self-pity is a really comfortable place for her to be on a regular basis. And these feelings are unconscious. Like she believes that the world around her is causing these feelings to come up, when in fact her brain is looking for reasons to identify reasons to feel sadness and self-pity for herself. And she goes through this cycle over and over and over again, where she's looking for reasons to feel this feeling that she's so familiar with, that she's so accustomed to. And then she will attack the person saying that you did this, you made me feel this way, it's your fault. And then she goes into sadness and then into anger. I would say that most people can relate if I were to say that, there's certain people who have an anger management issue, right? And you can say they're almost addicted to anger. I think that's kind of a more common example. That quote unquote addiction is really a habit, a pattern. So a habit is a trigger, that first bullet there, a trigger, then an activity that produces a reward. Charles Duhigg in The Power of Habit goes into great detail, and it's a really good book to read about how habits can be changed and how habits can be reinforced. What I do in my line of work is essentially take this academic content that Charles Duhigg and authors like him write about, and I actually do it. I'm the practical application part of this habit changing process. So we talked about feelings. There are also words, like the way that we're used to saying things and the way that we're used to hearing ourselves speak is a habit. How we say those words is also a habit. I know someone that cannot say thank you and cannot say you're welcome. And when he says it, if forced, is with this very sour attitude, very sour energy, even though he is a thankful person and he does think, is happy to do things for people, but just to say it, it's like, it feels wrong to him to say them. So words can be habits, patterns, really. And then beliefs. So beliefs are the most powerful unconscious patterns that we possess. And most of the time they're hidden, they're invisible, but they are this powerful guiding force that influences our lives greatly. So how do beliefs influence success? So I call them habitual beliefs, right? I'm really trying to build this bridge here that beliefs are habits. But, questions like this, ask yourself right now, Is success due to something you did or said, something you did or said, or is it due to luck? Is it due to something over there? That's a belief. Is success something you deserve, something you can embrace or own? Or is it something you feel is something that, yeah, I kind of, yeah, but I don't really deserve it, and you push it away? Is success something that you pursue, that you make happen, that is in your capacity to create? Or is it something that has to find you? Are you passive towards success, or are you active? And is success an art, or is it a science? Or is it both? And maybe some of you are, very sophisticated in the area of beliefs, and you've already asked yourself these questions and you have the answer right there in your mind. But a lot of us, don't know the answer. I don't know that I know that I can answer each of these questions quickly and confidently and like authoritatively. But at the end of the day, I'll tell you that sometimes I don't feel that my success is deserved. I feel it's undeserved. And it's not even a conscious thing. It's more like a whisper. It's more like this little kind of thing, like this tickle in the back of my brain. And how is that affecting my ability to capitalize and continue to make progress? Probably it influences it a lot. And sussing out these unconscious forces is very important to continued progress. So beliefs can be global, right? Beliefs about right and wrong, beliefs about punishment, beliefs about reward. They can also be situation specific. So someone can be very black and white about something globally, but then in a specific situation, when faced with a certain individual, all bets are off, so to speak. But most importantly, beliefs are a collection of references. So think of beliefs. This was an example given to me by Tony Robbins. He says it like this. You can think of a belief as a tabletop. So the belief is this flat tabletop. You can set things on it. You can, build something on this tabletop. And under the tabletop, you've got legs, right? You've got at least 4 legs or 3 legs or something like that. The more legs you have on a table, the more stable that and strong and solid that table is. And likewise, the more references that a belief has, the more solid, the more persistent, the more enduring the belief is. And not just the more that you have, but the stronger the references are, the thicker the legs are. So a conviction is a belief that has so many references, and these references are so strong and they're so ingrained that it's almost like you cannot knock the legs out from under this table to change this belief. So if you have a belief about success that has a lot of references, has a lot of legs to it, and these legs are really strong, like it's a very emotionally charged experience that you had as a kid or that you had as an adult, where really, you feel it inside, you can almost feel your entire body kind of, warp or tense up. That's a conviction that is going to take a lot of work, a lot of persistent effort to change, because the stronger the legs are, the more you have to work to saw them off or to knock them down or to hammer them apart. And until you knock down enough of those legs, that belief will not fall. That belief will not change. And so if that belief is the obstacle that's standing in the way of success, and again, success can be material success, or it can just be the aspect of being happy. Maybe right now, that's all we can say that success is. We can't really, do as much as we used to do. So maybe just feeling good inside is success. But if those legs are too strong, it'll take a lot of effort to, it'll take a lot of force to knock them down. So I mention this because when I do work with people, sometimes people come to me and say, hey, I have this habit, I have this problem, I have this issue, I want it resolved. I'll say, okay, well, let's talk so I can understand kind of what's the background, and let's get an idea of how long it might take for that to change. And a lot of times they'll say, well, I want it to change like fast. I mean, this is hypnosis, right? Like that's what you do. Doesn't it work like that, like in an instant? And I say, I mean, it could work in an instant if all the stars are aligned. But if you've got a lot of resistance, which is the beliefs with a lot of references, with a lot of really strong legs, it'll take me some time to address each one of these references, to knock each one of these references off, off the table, for that resistance to come off, and then for the change to happen like that. And that's the case whether you're working with someone like me or whether you're just trying to do this on your own. There we go. So how do you embrace a success mindset? So first you have to identify what are the references that will support success for you. So number one, you have to define success. First and foremost, you have to define it. And you may need to get specific. You may have one definition of success for your personal life. You have one definition of success for your professional life. You may need to reconcile these two if there are aspects of them that conflict or, crash into each other. You may have another definition of success for your physical body. You may have another definition of success for your intellectual pursuits or what have you. Get as specific as possible. Like with any goal, if it's not specific and measurable and actionable and all that stuff, you won't get there. So success is the same way, of course. And then you can identify what references would support success mindset for you. And the references can be things that have happened in your past that you maybe don't think about very often. Like, for example, I won a competition in high school that I never in a million years thought I would win. I mean, I was the only person in the school to win this award. And I don't think about it very often. I really don't focus on it. Yet I could. It would really, kind of lift me up when necessary to keep me in a good mental state, in a good emotional state. But it's a reference that I just don't prioritize focusing on. I should. They could also be references that you envision, references for the future, or they could be examples that someone else has done. So you could say, well, if this person did that, then I know I can do that. So that's a reference as well. You've got your own references from the past. You've got references that someone else has done that you can identify with in some way. Like when I was in the military, when I was flying, there was this one pilot who was not that good. He was very smart, super smart, but not a very good stick. And whenever I was kind of maybe struggling with confidence, I would say, you know what? If that guy can do it, I can do it. And you know what? I always did. When I put that thought into my head, I did, and I did it really well because I was focused on it. Really boosted my confidence. So collect references to support a success mindset for you and get as specific as possible. And then you have to decide. You have to decide that you want to change. And this part usually gets overlooked. People assume that, well, of course I've decided. No, no, you may not have decided. You may be on the fence about whether you want to be successful. You may need to talk yourself into it. You may need to have someone like me talk you into it. You may need a friend to talk you into it. You may need to write a pro-con list. We take for granted that certain things are things we should aspire to. But when we really try and begin the process of working towards it, we can't seem to make progress. Anytime that you find yourself procrastinating or you find yourself stalling or making excuses and saying, well, if only so-and-so would, treat me better, or if only so-and-so would give me more attention, or if only so-and-so would deliver their product on time, then I could get started. Then I would be successful. Then I would, not eat the cookies or whatever. That is you not decided. That's having not decided. So ask yourself right now, hopefully you're taking notes. I don't know. I'm very happy to send this recording to everybody on the call, to everybody who registered. But if you're stalling, if you haven't made progress yet, you haven't decided. Then actively establish new beliefs by altering this trigger activity reward, trigger activity reward, trigger activity reward. So, if it's something like the woman I was mentioning earlier who loves to indulge in sadness and self-pity, that individual, if she decided that she wanted to change her beliefs about success, about, hey, I want to feel good every day. Success for me means that I don't feel self-pity. I feel self-pity less than 20% of the time. Like it's a rarity for me at this point to feel self-pity. It really has to be something up here for me to feel self-pity. And even then I'm like chopping away at that feeling quick. All right. So what references does she need? Well, she needs references of people loving her. She needs to remember when people treat her well. She needs to, anchor into herself the really positive feelings that she has around the people that trigger her, so that when those people are not paying attention to her, she can immediately interrupt the pattern with some kind of different activity, right? Like maybe getting up and leaving the room, drinking water. That would be a way to interrupt the pattern, and then go back and with the new anchor, with the new feeling anchored into her, restart the conversation with that person from a place of feeling good or from a place of feeling loved, instead of from that place of feeling self-pity. That will give her a new reward. That new reward will prime the brain to seek that activity out again. So now it becomes easier when she gets triggered to interrupt the pattern, go drink a glass of water, come back with that positive feeling that was anchored in, the love that was anchored in earlier, and then start the conversation over again so she can again have that positive reward. And you just repeat this process. The more intensity that you do this process, that you do this process with, the shorter the time period. So it's like force, right? In physics, I'm not a physics expert. I'm not a physicist, but I do know that force equals something like distance over like I can't remember, but it's a combination of time, duration, and intensity, right? So it's the same thing over here. It's time, less time, you need more intensity to get the same effect. More time, less intensity, you'll get the same effect later. So that's where something like hypnosis or self-hypnosis or meditation, you can up the intensity of this mental shift, this mental trigger activity reward. You can up the intensity and shorten the amount of time. So someone has a question. Let's see what the question is. All right. Let's see. This is very true. Thank you so much, Nicole. I appreciate it. I really am grateful to hear that other people have the same experience and have experiences firsthand. Okay, so tonight, let me check the time. We're good. We're perfect. All right, so tonight's process for embracing success, I'm going to talk it through. I'm going to cut out what I've actually done is I've pre-recorded a hypnosis session that will allow you to do this for yourself, where you can listen to it and over and over and over again, decide on what you want to change, decide on what you want to focus on, listen to that recording and do it. Just follow my instructions in the recording. But basically what we need to do, what we want to do, is we want to take whatever it is that is important to us and make it very, very tangible, make it very real. So most of us are visual people. So imagine something that makes you feel good, makes you feel proud, right? Right? Proud is a feeling we can all relate. We can all say that that's a desirable feeling. Men and women, young and old, everybody can say, yeah, feeling proud feels good. So remember a time when you felt proud. And if you just kind of remember it like this, like, oh yeah, that time, you won't really feel proud. Maybe you'll feel slightly better, but you won't really feel better. But now if I say, close your eyes and imagine that scene that gives you a feeling of pride, imagine it now through your own eyes. Make sure you see this through your own eyes and begin to notice all the details. Begin to notice now who's in the room with you. Make sure that the scene is in color, okay? Make sure it's in color and make it really bright. Just add light to this scene. Make it bright, 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 like it's a scene that's been overexposed and it's more bright and more intense. Now make the colors really vivid. Just make the colors really intense. Whatever you're wearing, begin to notice things. Even if you're not sure what you're wearing, just kind of decide what you were wearing. Decide who is there. Make that scene bright, make that scene real, make it very close. Okay, bring it really close. Bring where the point of pride really close to you so that it's close and it's bright and it's colorful and it's vivid and it's absolutely real. It is so real. It is so intense. Make it more intense. Make it more bright. Make it more real, more tangible. Notice how inside you, there's an energy that's building. There's an energy, there's a pride, there's a sense of intensity. Maybe you're even like standing different. Maybe you're breathing differently as well. Notice how good it feels to feel this way, to really see this scene in this way. Now go ahead and open your eyes. And what you just did is you took that viewfinder of your camera and you created that perfect composition for feeling pride right now. And just like I did it for you, just kind of talked it through. And obviously, if you were in the room with me, I would be watching you. I would notice, like, is she shifting? Is he shifting? Do I need to say more things? Do I need to describe this differently? But for right now, I'm sure you feel a shift. And it's the same thing you can do for yourself. It's a decision. I decided that we were going to feel pride right now, even stronger, even more intense. You went along with me, hopefully, because you wanted to feel that way too. You can do this for yourself. So you are always in control of your mental or emotional state. And the more that you can bring examples of success, what you define as success, into focus in that way, like the example I just did for you, the more your brain, your reticular activating system will say, that's important. I need to find reasons to feel that way. I'm going to seek out reasons to feel that way. Have you ever known someone who was so pessimistic that person could find something negative to focus on like the most perfect, beautiful day where the sun is shining, the birds are singing, the weather is perfect, the grass is green, the kids are playing, there's cake on the table, there's like wine in the cooler, and for some reason, somehow that individual finds something wrong with that experience, and you're like, really? Seriously? And right, everybody's down. You can do that. It's so easy to do it, down. We almost take it for granted, like, oh, of course he or she ruined my mood, or oh, of course this individual has feels bad. But we can also do it the other way. And I think it's our responsibility to do it, to bring ourselves up, to focus and refocus on all those references, right? The time in your past that you felt pride, that's a reference. That's a reference. So you want to feel those references. You want to find those references for yourself. Likewise, if you want to minimize how you feel about something. So remember or imagine a time when you felt bad, sad, self-pity, anger, whatever it is. I'm sure it's easy to recall a time when you felt bad. Go ahead and close your eyes and just remember that time. Now, the first thing I want you to do is to take yourself out of your body. and see the scene as a third person would see it. So you're seeing it from out of your body, you're seeing yourself in that problem scene, that scene that kind of causes you a feeling, creates a feeling of suffering in you, whatever flavor of suffering you feel in this moment. But now you're seeing it as a third person. Now I'd want you to make that scene dim. Make it dim. Make it kind of out of focus now. Take the focus out. So you're kind of beginning to not really notice or can't really tell who else is around you. And now the lights have dimmed. It's hard to see. Now take all the color out of that scene. Take all the color out of that scene. And then, go ahead and begin to shrink it down. Almost like it was a big poster, but now it's kind of just getting smaller and smaller and smaller. And that scene now is black and white, kind of dim, kind of out of focus. You're seeing it as a third person. It's just getting smaller and smaller and smaller and smaller and smaller and further away, and just further away and smaller and further away and further away. And whether or not you want to, the feeling is getting smaller and smaller too, until it's all gone. Just let that scene just go. Let it shrink down to nothing, like it just poof, like in a cartoon or in a magic show. And that feeling might be gone too. And like a muscle, this gets easier with practice. So a lot of people think, oh, I tried and it didn't work and I suck and I won't be able to do it. And this isn't working, Monica. Why is this not working? It is working. But just like you didn't learn how to ride a bike in one day or in one attempt, you might need some practice, right? Some people are naturally talented at doing this. Some people need some practice or some repetition. So with repetition, you're going to get really good at this. Like I said, I recorded an audio recording, and I hope that you will take advantage of the audio recording that I'll send to you. And you can always watch this again if you want a refresher. So as I mentioned, the next step would be if you would like to continue to work on something specific. If there's an area of your life where you need more success, you are welcome to continue this in a one-on-one setting. The one-on-one setting gives you personalized attention to what your challenges are, what your struggles are. If you're not a particularly visual person, all of this can be done kinesthetically, meaning like with the sense of touch or feeling, auditorially as well, or a combination of all those. The point of the initial assessment, which is now being done all over Zoom, is to establish like your personal way ahead, to really get specific on what area of your life you really need to make progress in, and what success looks like for you in this very specific way. It is a 90-minute appointment. Those of you that have worked with me before know this. Regularly, it's $295. Those of you that have worked with me before know this. But if you would like to work with me as a result of this program, as a result of this webinar, for tonight, it's 50% off. I don't have any special link, but you can email me and I will send you the link. I don't have a link on the slide, but I do have a link that I will email you if you would like to take advantage of this. And it's an additional 30% off all programs if you would like to move forward and actually do a program with me. The program length, again, just kind of depends on the table and the legs, right? So references, how many references, how strong are they? What exactly is your definition of success? What are the obstacles in the way? That all factored into what type of program you would like to do. And then we are in the process of uploading over 50 recordings, well done, with great music, with scripts attached to it. If you ever wanted to do this for a friend, or you just want access to the script of these hypnosis recordings, the library is going to be live May 1st. And eventually we're going to charge for it. But if you would like to take advantage of this, you would be one of the founder members, so to speak, and have access to this downloadable library of recordings. And like I said, email me and I'll send you the unique URL for this 50% off the initial assessment program. So the question is, how much of my 90-minute appointments do I do hypnosis? So the initial assessment is an assessment. So we do hypnosis as a demonstration. So for the initial assessment, it's only about 20 minutes for kind of like a demo purpose. The demo involves specific process that allows me to understand, are you visual, are you kinesthetic, how do you process information, gives you the same insight, it gives you the knowledge of what this feels like. And then we also shift emotions, so we do some emotion shifting as well. But in the actual appointments in the program, it depends on what we're addressing. So there are times when an entire appointment may need to be dedicated to creating context through specific framing of the situation, the specific dismantling of beliefs, to knock those legs out from under that table. And sometimes it's 100% hypnosis because we're really trying to deal with kind of a emotional or intuitive kind of issue, and so talking about it isn't going to help. So I really give every client a customized experience depending on what they need, want, and what their preferences are too. Super excellent. Alrighty, so moving on. So that's option one if you'd like to do that. For those that like privacy, I always present this. For those of you that like groups, I have an awesome group going right now, specifically for highly successful women who are exploring the next phase of their life and trying to find their authentic way ahead. This group here, the Habit Breaker group, would meet weekly for 6 weeks on Zoom. The Habit Breaker group is really to break bad habits that lead to failure and embrace the habits of success. It's not just success like professionally or financially. It's really whatever success looks like to you. We have a Habit Breaker system that we are actually putting in place and creating a very comprehensive online course. And the Habit Breaker system is a formalized process that I already put my clients through, albeit with more customizations for the one-on-one. It's only 10 people, very small. The first 10 people that sign up that want to do this are going to get the seats. Again, it's a 90-minute weekly meeting for 6 weeks. We're going to do this over and over and over again. So about 4 times a year is the plan to do this. Right now, this is going to be Sundays starting May 3rd. Sundays starting May 3rd, 7:30 to 9 p.m. I did it that way because I know 99% of people don't work on Sundays between 7:30 and 9 p.m. They're getting ready for the rest of their week. So what better time to focus on establishing good habits for the week ahead than right there at that time? Doesn't interfere with church, all that sort of stuff. And it really will help get the week off on the right foot. The 6 weeks are normally going to be $9.95, but if you would like to be one of those first 10 people to do this small group that starts May 3rd, please let me know. It's just $195 for the entire 6 weeks. It's going to be great. I'm leading it. I'm going to be the one doing it, and it's going to be life-changing, I promise. And of course, the lifetime access to the downloadable library of recordings is available as well. So just like today, we're doing this educational piece, and then I'm going to send you the recording for success. Likewise, at that in the group, we're going to do the educational piece and maybe a meditation as well. But then you're going to have a specific recording to take you to the next level based on what we discussed in the group. So again, just please email me and I'll send you the link. Okay. There's my email, monica@peakperformanceassociates.com. Just go to the website. You can always call us and leave a voicemail tonight and I will respond. Sorry that I'm not better with creating links and stuff for you to click on. I have an assistant that does all that YouTube stuff with clicking and subscribe here and all that stuff, not me. So the goal is to embrace your success mindset today. I hope you found this, let's see here, hour informative and helpful and inspiring, and really reminding you that you have the power to take back control of your mind, to break any habits, any habitual beliefs that are blocking you from being successful in every area of your life. And it can be easier than you think, because if you use that unconscious part of your brain, it is much, much, much more powerful than just trying to slug it out with conscious, cognitive attempts at changing habits. So I look forward to hearing from each of you, and have a great night. Thank you so much for joining me.